Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Ozark Season 4, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, it's been a couple days since episode 1, like in the confines of the story. Obviously, Sheriff Nix is going missing, and I love there's a missing poster for him and everything. It's like, well, not even a poster, a billboard. You're like, cool, that's staring you in the face. So obviously, things are not going Darlene's way. She's trying to get her operation up and running, but the KC mob does not want to have anything to do with it because it's like, no, we were already in the middle of things with the cartel. It's like, Sheriff Nix most likely got by the cartel. We ain't about that smoking. We ain't about that. So, which I love that Frank Jr. is like, oh, if I can get over and work with her, like, you can too. And I love Frank Sr.'s almost looking at him like I give a shit what you think. He almost has that. I mean, whether that's the case or not, but it's just like, yeah, I mean, I think it speaks volumes at Frank Jr., but it's almost like, I don't care, you idiot. I'm not going to work with her if it means crossing paths with the cartel again. So things are kind of a bust on that front, to the point she's pissed at Jonah, because she's like, no, Jonah, I don't even want you around here. Basically can't serve two masters, which, to be fair, he's not the most loyal to his family right now. He's not working with them, but to be fair, he did cover for them, because it's like, oh, what happened to John? He's like, I have no idea. It's like, right, he might be a little pissy towards his family right now, but he's not trying to draw unnecessary attention, especially because he's not trying to draw Darlene's ire towards them, because he also knows who Darlene is, so he doesn't want to be on her bad side, and he doesn't want her family kind of caught up in any bad issues with her. So he's trying to go his own way. He likes Ruth more than he likes his family right now. I think, once again, I don't know how he feels about Marty. Definitely seems like he's definitely pissed at Wendy. I don't know if the same thing is applicable to Charlotte in that regard, but... And obviously, Ruth finding out, like, oh, cool. So things are kind of going super sideways, which Darlene's like, if we don't, like, get some kind of distribution going, you bought this, like, lazy oat for nothing with your own money, like, so you're kind of screwed. So Ruth is trying to make moves. In fact, she's trying to, like, spice up how they sell the heroin and being like, all right, rather than just, straight up, like, trying to find someone bigger to, like, distribute it and stuff like that, like, why don't we just, like, hike up the price? Like, basically make it fancy and, like, oh, we're doing all this, it's this and that, like, using, like, these buzzwords that make it seem like, ooh, like, we want to make people, like, kind of almost overhype your heroin, because it's like, cool, we make it sound like it's the coolest, greatest heroin you've ever had, then, like, everyone's gonna buy it up. And you can tell immediately Darlene was not too happy about that, because Darlene's very stuck in her own ways about how she likes things, but also it felt like, oh, this was like the Langmore show in that moment. It was no longer, because this is a snail operation, this has been their thing, and I think maybe it was just a reminder that her husband's not around, because it's like, right, like, we'd be a unified front. And I think she was also hoping her and Wyatt would be a unified front, but the moment her looking there and just being like upset, I'm like, that's not good. Like, the walls are starting to crack. Like, oh, this ain't... Because eventually she's going to get pissed, because she's like, cool, I like having you around, Ruth, but I'm not about to have you question things. Like, this is my operation. Here you are talking to Wyatt like it's no big deal. Like, so... Which Ruth ends up going to that dude, what's his name, Carrie, to basically try and get him. It's like, she's like, I don't need you to be a drug dealer. I need you to be an influencer. I need you to go to all the high rollers and hype this up to be like the best stuff ever. Oh, the farm that's grown on is great, blah, blah, blah. And the fact is, he had Ruth take a hit, I thought was interesting. And I was like, oh boy, I'm scared about that, because it just takes one. I'm like, oh, that's going to be a slippery slope for Ruth. I hope it's not, but I can definitely see that being kind of like a bad end. Like, at least that's going to cause some issues later on. Maybe not. And maybe it's just like, hey, I got enough here to, like, get you interested, so I took the hit too. But I'm also like, I mean, drugs we are talking about drugs here. They are addictive. I mean, the whole point is also like, right, don't get high off your own supply, right? I mean, it's like, obviously, Breaking Bad wise, we saw what kind of route that led Jesse down. And obviously that was an up and down situation with his sobriety and stuff like that. But regardless, I'm scared of Ruth kind of going down that, like, route. Like, she's like, I don't do that. But it's like, kind of got talked into him. Just like, I don't know if that's going to hit her again, later on. Like, whether she's going to be like, or someone's going to convince her to do it, and she's going to be a little less reluctant. And a little less reluctant until she just kind of gets caught up in the swirl of it all. We'll see. Granted, she bought Carrie out there to check out the land and stuff, and it's like, oh, cool, this is good dirt. We'll grow up on a farm. She's like, good for you. And then Darlene's just like, you know what? Screw it. I ain't about this hippy dippy stuff. Get off my land, or you're going to get buried underneath it. Which even Wyatt's kind of like, I mean, this is her land. I mean, and she's my girlfriend. Which I'm like, wow. So I guess you're kind of. You're the arm candy in this situation, so I guess he's just kind of like, yeah, I gotta respect her decisions and stuff like that. So Ruth is trying to see things for the bigger picture, but Darlene's like very stuck in her ways because it's like, no, I need to remind you, this is my operation. Yeah, you're partners, but I think going forward, Darlene's probably going to set more boundaries on like what this partnership actually means. Like, don't get it twisted, because regardless of everything, it's not an even 50-50 split. She's got the 25%, the 75 goes to her and goes between Darlene and Wyatt. So if he sides with her, then there's not much Ruth can do. And unless, Wyatt decides like, oh, I'm going to take my share of that, like once again, that 37, 38% and side with Ruth, which that's not a good idea because you're going to get dead. Hell, even Marty's wondering later on when it comes out, Jonah's working with her. It's like, don't get my son involved in all this. It's fine. He's just doing the math. It's like, no one's safe when it comes to Darlene. Ask her husband. I mean, he didn't go that far, but once again, that's always a complicated road because they were both willing to kill each other. She just happened to kill him first. I made that point last episode, so I can't always use it as an example, but it's like, right, she did shoot Frank Jr.'s dick off, and it's like, so I even love her being like, oh, like, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to try and stop me? Like, what are you going to do? Get your dick shot off? And he's like, oh, nice. But it is the thing of, once again, Darlene is crazy. She likes things her way. And the fact of the matter is, you got two alphas in this situation, Ruth and Darlene. Thing is, Ruth is an alpha, but it is, like Marty said, you are out of your depths here. Like, you think just because you know a little bit from what you picked up on me, like, obviously Marty wanted to leave everything to her at one point in time, sure, but it's like, this is a different beast when we're dealing with not only Darlene, who's also, once again, in the cartel's crosshairs. It's like, come on, son. It's like, it's not smart to be around her, especially when she's wild and unpredictable like she is. Hell, I even love she tried to talk to the new Sheriff Guerrera, and it's like, ma'am, I know who you are. Sheriffs, we talk, we gossip. I know that John was under your thumb. That ain't me. You want influence and stuff like that? Wait till the next election and talk to the next sheriff. I ain't about that. Because she's from a different county, and she's like, cool. Like, she is someone that's just legitimately going to be like, right, I'm going to investigate stuff. I mean, hell, the only reason why John investigated stuff because Mel stuck his neck. I'm like, once again, what is this dude's deal? Like, come on, why are you so invested in this? So he was meeting with Guerrera, and obviously he knows that Jonah is with Ruth and Darlene, and he's keeping an eye on them. So that's why I'm like, I said it last episode, I'm thinking even more so now. I'm like, he's gotta be Helen's ex. Because I'm like, why else would you go this hard in the paint? Like, maybe he actually is a private investigator, but also maybe the fact is that, well, because we haven't really tackled the whole, like, Helen's daughter angle of things. So, I mean, it might just be like her husband might be someone powerful enough that it's like, right, he asked me to do this, so I have to do it. I have to get results. I'm just like, once again, I said it last episode, he's just going to be the one to stir up the most shit. It feels like that to me. Like, he's going to be the linchpin that just sets so much stuff off. Like, everything is going to go wrong because of him. It's like, because you pushed Nix to go check on Helen, he got popped. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see about that. But then there's the whole Maya angle. You had Marty going to visit her, and it's like, cool. Oh, she's like, oh, you want to go like witness, like protection type of thing of like, oh, you want to make a deal? Like, yeah, we're past that. It's like, no, not for me. And she's like, no. It's like, yep. He wants to come in from the code. And it's like, no, like, and I was actually surprised, like, well, because I think the trailer made it seem like, no, at least, I mean, that's just purely my interpretation. I thought the thing was, there is nothing he could bring to the table that would be enough. But she's like, no, he can bring stuff to the table, but he has to bring big names. That's why I was actually surprised. I'm like, I'm actually super surprised that they're like, because like I said, I think I misinterpreted that little bit of the scene we got in the trailer. Because I thought mine was like, oh, it's more than he's willing to give. Like, I thought was kind of under the impression like, no, we're not gonna make a deal with you because you're Navarro, like you're a top dog. But it's like, no, you give us names, like I kind of thought as much of like if he has big enough names and political people that he could probably throw under the bus, then yeah, it's probably gonna sway his way. Probably other big people probably within his own cartel. But I'm like, you're top dogs, so I don't know if they matter as much. They're small fry in comparison to you. You are the Moby Dick in this situation. You are the white whale, you know? And so I'm curious, would it be someone in like a political situation that he has ties to? Is like, cool, you'll be taking down corruption in your own government type of thing, taking down some very powerful political leaders because they are corrupt and very bad people that have worked with me. I that's kind of been my assumption. We'll have to, once again, wait and see, like what he could actually offer. But it's like, because obviously he's once again no jail time and stuff like that. So Marty tries to talk to Navarro about it. He's like, no, basically want to have a sit down with her. It's like, I don't know. It's like, yeah, I want to have a sit down with her, which Maya's not too keen on the idea of having a sit down with Navarro. And it's just like, right, Marty's like, me and Wendy will be there. You won't have to like be there alone. Because it's like, cool. Because I don't want him knowing my address. It's like, to be fair, he has connections. You don't want him to know your address. It's like, now that you're involved in this, he's going to know. Well, I don't know if he might not have Maya's name. Full name, maybe. Well, I don't know if he knows like Maya Miller, but I know like I think Marty has called her Maya before. I don't know if he knows her full name. I don't remember now. But it's also like, once again, you cartel, like you can get that information no problem if you wanted it. So it's like, oh, I don't want him to have my address. I'm like, how do you know he doesn't already have it? I guess it's like, right, if he wanted to, he would have come to you immediately. But it's like, that would have been issues, complications within its own right. So maybe he just hasn't acted upon it. I don't know. So Maya's going to be staying with them a little while this is all happening. It's like, don't worry, Charlotte will look after Wilson. Don't worry. She dropped Jonah like one time, but obviously was saying that just to like add some levity to the scene and try and make things not as awkward. But I love Javier talking about like, right, he's blaming the birds and stuff like that, being like, yeah, that family, blah, blah, blah. I went there to fix days, and then Navarro smacked the shit out of him. It's like, what are you talking about? This is your fault. You want to act like it's the birds? You went there with your impatience. The fact of the matter is, if they tie that sheriff back to us, it's going to be them, the FBI rolling up on us like they did the Laguna cartel. And then all of our blood is going to be on your soft hands, Javier. I was like, ooh, I love that line. Just to put him in this place. It's like, oh, and when he walks away, he's like, okay, I'll fix this. And he walks away and just like, oh, now the baby's crying. I was like, yo. And I love that he comes to Marty later on and he was like, okay, we're here to clean up your mess. I'm like, his mess? You're the one coming here popping cops like it's nothing. Nobody told you to do that. No one told you to. You're the one that decided like, oh, I'm going to stay at Helen's place. Like, no one told you to do that. That's your fault. Once again, this is all a byproduct of, once again, Mel. It all traces back to being his fault. But Javier's got him, Marty helping him clean up and everything. And it's just like, yeah, this is your fault. And Marty's like, how? He's like, because you're untrustworthy and stuff like that. It's like, Navarro trusts him, but it's also like, it's because, truth be told, you don't trust your uncle. Because, I mean, he's got, I think it's that machismo of just being, like, that cartel machismo of just like, no, I gotta prove myself. Either because he's like, just like his uncle said, like, oh, he's looking for any cracks in the armor so that he can, like, take care of business and come out on top. So, especially like his uncle belittling him like that, not just like, it's like, oh, in private. It's like, no, there were other like big shots in the room, and his uncle like it's like, oh, like, know your place, boy. Like, you don't, if anything goes wrong, this is going to be on you, which it will be. But as they're cleaning up, lo and behold, Guerrera, it's like, man, people like that, Mel just keeps on, he's the gift that just keeps on giving. Even more so when we get to him later on in the episode, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But I love that Guerrera stops by, and then Marty's like, oh yeah, business partner, she gave me key to Blaze. And I love that Javier's like, the system like, what's in the system? And Marty's just like, go, I got rid of it. I already took care of it. I wiped the whole system. I was like, the fact is, I'm like, gun in hand, are you really about to pop another sheriff? Like, 2 going missing? Like, no. Because even I love, Guerrera knows, like, what's up. Because she's like, yeah, while John's, quote unquote, away. But it's like, oh yeah, the system's off. It's like, oh yeah, that's weird. Oh, you've been doing some cleaning? It's like, oh yeah. You know, it's like, I was worried she went back to Chicago. It's like, really? Why is that worrying for you? So it's like, yeah, she is good at her job, and she isn't the type of person to potentially look away from all of this. And that moment, Javier's kind of looking, because he was there during that conversation Marty was having with Navarro, but he was like, yeah, don't tell him I'm here. If so, I'll kill you and your family. He's like, yeah. Marty's like, I got it. I've been on into this long enough to know threats and stuff like that. I got it. But luckily, it probably would have been an issue if, I doubt he would have been like, oh, put it on speaker, but he got bits of the conversation, but only from Marty's point of view, and Marty's being careful not to say anything too much, because it's like, right, don't need to, but also the less Javier had less ammunition for Javier to have against his uncle. But Javier, I think, is feeling like, all right, there's something going on, like, why is my uncle so trusting in them? Like, what is he planning? And I'm not in the loop about. But also, like, the way Marty handled the Guerrera thing, like, either it's just like I'm going to keep ties, I'm going to keep an eye on this situation. Because, like, once again, he's making it seem like the birds are so untrustworthy. It's like, you flying off the handle is super unworthy. And that's, once again, it's like, it's so interesting because there's actually 2 people who fly off the handle currently we're dealing with. We've got Darlene on one side of things, and we got Javier, which is so interesting because they're a match made in heaven. And funny enough, like, Javier wants her removed from the board just because it's like he's tired of, like, you know, he blames his whole Darlene situation on them. Like, we wouldn't even have to worry about it. Because it's like her doing what she's doing, and like, unless we take care of that, it makes them, the cartel, look weak. Because it's like, oh, like, we got to lay the ground rules, and this lady isn't listening to us. So we'll see how that all plays out. I was so certain that was going to be him at Marty and Wendy's place at the end, not near the end of the episode, but later in the episode, and it ended up being Mel. I love it, and especially because Maya came out with gun in hand, and it's like, yo, I'm an FBI agent, and he's like, oh, cool, like, oh, an FBI agent, how'd you pull that? And he's like, a family friend, and it's like, oh yeah, like, apparently Guerrera talked about the fact that footage was missing. Yeah, it's like, yeah, maybe something happened when you went in there, broke in there illegally. It's like, maybe, or you cleaned up. It's like, you know what happened to Helen, and then he references like, yeah, my ex-wife, no, I'm blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that's why I'm like, he has to be Helen's ex, but like, still, why though? You know, not unless his daughter told him the truth. Once again, we haven't really tapped that. I think the last thing we saw was like everything between her and Helen last season. I think is the last time we saw her. So we still don't know like heads or tails with all of that. Maybe, cause didn't she go stay with her dad? Wasn't that the whole point? Like after Ben basically blabbed about everything. Which, speaking of Ben, that opening was actually really heartbreaking. Like Ruth getting that thing, the goat, and put his ashes in, and I thought, you know, that scene, just her breaking down, and that sound, like, it's just one of those things, like, especially the way she was crying to him, like, God, that Julia Garner is the actress who plays Ruth. I'm like, damn, that's so real. I don't know what you had to do to bring yourself, but that choking, like, I was like, holy shit, like, I don't know what she did to make herself go there, but I'm like, holy crap, like, that, it just felt like such a real, like, when you're just choking, just, like, that, like, I don't know what it was. I was like, Jesus, dude. There's a lot of heavyweights in this, like, show, acting-wise, stuff, like, regardless. I love that. And I think it speaks volumes that it took only till now for Wendy to notice that Ben was gone and ask Jonah about it. And it's like, I gave him the roof. She loved him. And she goes over, it's like, you better not have done anything with the Bens. It's like, no, I got them and they're safe. And it's like, and I love that when it's like, all right, give them back to me. It's like, no, Jonah gave them to me. Unless he says so, you're not getting them back. And I love that, like, Wendy just having to stick the knife in a little deeper. It's like, Wendy kind of fly off the handle herself, though. But I love that she's just like, you're just the latest of many women that he was in love with, that was just became his latest obsession. He didn't really love you. It's just like, you didn't have to do that. But you're pissed, you know, because it's just like the hurt of, like, I was forced to kill my brother. Like, now you're doing all you can to try and move forward. Like, that guilt is all there. And it's like, and then just saying that, you know how much she cared about your brother, and in that moment for you to do all, because in her mind it's like, right, Ruth has betrayed us. I don't trust, like, it's just all of that. It's just her pride, her ego is getting in the way, her own emotions with everything related to Ben, to say something hurtful like that. And then, like, Ruth had to take a stop, and she's like, yeah, you're right. But we never would have known, like, maybe he would have dumped me, or, like, I would have just been that obsession or whatever. But you ended up killing him first. And just, like, I love that Wendy was walking away, and then she walked forward, but then, like, Ruth had closed the door, and just, like, yeah, that's eventually going to come to a head. Which is so sad, considering, like, Wendy made such a point, like, that she cared about Ruth, and it's just, like, now it's kind of like, nope. Like, last episode made it seem like a very, like, nope. Once again, I think Marty still cares about her. Whether Wendy does, it kind of seems unlikely. But obviously, Wendy's making moves. It's like, right, like she made it clear this episode, I want national influence. So it's like, right, got to shake hands, got to get these 5 very specific people from the very 5 specific cities. So it's like, cool, you're going to need some capital. You're going to need 150 million yesterday if you want to make, like, a lot of these moves happen. If you want to have, like, certain elections and certain, like, people in your pocket, like, within the year. So there's the whole Claire situation, her pharmaceutical business, and I love Wendy kind of, like, using that situation to be like, oh yeah, like, what happened, like, oh, Marty getting in, it's about my brother, he's got drug use and bipolar. It's like, okay. It's like, yeah, how is he? He's missing. It's just like, right, kind of using some of her own pain to your benefit. Kind of jacked up, but, you got it, you might as well use it. And so I love that Marty and Wendy sat down with Claire, and it's like, yeah, it's like, right, we have access to your financials. It's like, yeah, you guys are going to be more, like, really screwed in the next, like, 2 months or something like that. You're going to hit bankruptcy. She's like, how'd you have access to that? He's like, he's like, oh, like, she's like, that's not public. And he's like, yeah, but it's accessible. So it's like, cool, like, and I'm the only one that's kind of gotten access to this ahead of time. So it's like, okay, so what's going on here? What's this conversation happening? It's like, cool, what if we can get you, like, oh, it's like opioids, like, you have to go through, like, Tasmania and Afghanistan and get them. What if we could find another source for you and you pay 65% less? You could be saving $300 million. All we're asking is you to donate half of that to our charitable donations. Like, you wanted to do good. It's like, yeah, this is the best opportunity. It's like, how much are you willing to sell your soul for some of this dirty money to potentially do some good with it? Does it even out the odds? Which, speaking of that, I think I find it ironic. Someone like Navarro going to a priest to confess his sins about, like, oh yeah, like, I accidentally kicked a dog, I was kind of rough on my son, but, like, being a little rougher towards him it will make him stronger in the end. And he was just apologizing for, like, these small, like, things. I love the priest was like, you have anything else you want to confess? And Navarro was thinking for a second. He's just this pregnant silence, and then he's just, no. So I'm like, how much does that priest actually know about what you're up to? Like, does he not know everything that you're up to? Because I'm like, I love that he was just like, yeah, all my other sins. I'm like, that's the ironic thing when, like, a major criminal like that. It's one thing to be like, oh, I found religion and I'm no longer the bad guy. That's one thing. It's like, oh no, I'm still a very, very bad guy in charge of a very powerful cartel, but I'm confessing my sins for the smaller things in life. So, but I guess also the priest is like, oh, I know what's what. I know not to ask too much. You're like, oh, you want anything else to confess? Cool. I guess that's between you and God. I'm not about to get in the middle of that. So, but that just kind of triggered that in my mind. So I love that. But circling back to it, Claire, the moment they having that conversation, Claire's like, okay, so this is, and I love Marty. Hey, at any point in time you want to walk away from this conversation, you can walk away. And she's like, so everything we're talking about right now is enough to get us in trouble. He's like, once again, you can walk away. And it's like, cool, like, kind of making the deal. And so ultimately Claire does strike the deal with them. She will give them the 150 million if he's able to kind of convince Navarro to give them the heroin they need, because it's like, right, we mix it in with the other stuff. It's obviously like Navarro's got his backing. It's like, it's going to be FDA approved. It's going to all look legit. Like, it's the heroin still coming from like a legit like place that's being like checked out and stuff like that. So you don't have to worry about anyone backtracking it, because it's all going to look legitimate. So we're going to mix in our heroin. You're going to pay way less. You're going to be saving a lot more money. We're able to do a lot of good. So it all works out. And I love that Wendy's making such a point to Jonah, like, oh, you're going to be on the wrong team. We just made a lot of money. The fact that your family's almost out of this. And then Jonah's like, yeah, so what did you do with the sheriff's body, and walks away. And the thing is, I love it because Wendy acts like she's on some moral high ground. It's like, you've got no moral high ground after everything that you've been a part of, everything that you've done. You know, it's like, it will always get thrown in your face. Oh, we're out of this? Yeah, how's Uncle Ben? Oh, right, he's dead because of you. Yeah, because also, like, he's looking at things from the perspective of, like, I'm a lot better at, like, I'm going things my own way. You think you're just going to be able to get away with all this? Because even Maya had said that line to Marty where it's like, basically, Navarro wants this to happen, and she's like, yeah, like, everyone is in this position where they think, they're going to be able to get what they want without basically having to pay a price for it. And there will be a price to pay even for the Bird family. Once again, what that price will be, I'll have to wait and see. But obviously, once again, they found out about Jonah. So it's like, cool. Charlotte, don't talk to Jonah about the business anymore. But I didn't talk about it during my trailer discussion because I love that line. And she's like, wow, laundering at 14. And Wendy's like, do not be proud of him right now. It's like, despite everything, it's like, yeah, but he's got his own system. Apparently he fixed my system. It's like, come on. Like, you gotta feel some sense of pride. You know, it's like, right. Still wants his son out from underneath all this, but he's still kind of proud of him doing what he's doing regardless. He's almost got that look of like when she was like, don't be proud of him. Marty held his head down almost like a, yes, dear. Sorry, dear. It was almost kind of like that, just without words. So I thought that was really, really interesting. But I love that it's like, right, we can't tell Maya that Javi's here, but ultimately Marty does, because like, it's like, oh, this investigator, oh yeah, he's looking for Helen. She's going through a pretty bad divorce. Is Helen dead? I don't know. He's like, yeah, Marty, you don't know. Yeah, you sure don't know about that blood of hers, her blood and brain matter that you and your wife had to scoop off your clothes and your hair. Obviously, it's like, right, if she finds out that Helen, once again, Helen getting popped was enough to freak Ruth out. So, of course, it would freak Maya out. So he's like, right, okay, Javi's here. That's why I couldn't answer your phone call earlier. He's ambitious. And she's like, thanks for your honesty. The moment he told her that, I was like, and she's not here. When she's still packing, I was like, oh, I was expecting you to be gone. I thought you would have snuck out in the middle of the night. No, you're still here. But she's like, no, I'm not going to do this. And then it's like, cool. And, you know, Marty's like, hey, she has her reservations. New mom, like, things are pretty crazy. So give us a few days. You said this would happen. Yeah, just, we'll work it out. We'll convince her. You got 10 minutes to get her in that car. So Wendy does her thing. Get in that car. No, this is Omar Navarro we're talking about here. You're already neck deep in this. You don't get to just walk away from this. If you don't protect my family, I'm not going to protect yours. Kind of a dick move, so Maya has no choice but to accept. Except Wendy and Marty can't go. And I'm wondering, is that a middle finger to them? Because like, oh, this was supposed to be a done deal, but no, it's not. And because there was reservations on her part, I'm not letting you guys come along. She has to come along alone, which obviously that's scaring the crap out of Maya. And it's like, but it's also like, Navarro will do whatever he wants to. I mean, I doubt he'd do it considering already they've got one sheriff sniffing around them because of Javier. I doubt he's going to do anything to Maya, but you never know. Because the scene between them talking is in the trailer, but obviously you get like a couple seconds of it, you know, so we don't know how the outcome of that will be, but I am very interested to find out what they're going to talk about, what he's offering her in the long run as well, so a lot of really, really interesting stuff. I'm curious to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about today. Next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.